95 minutes, M-rated. Now, can somebody explain to me what the title means? Because I'm afraid I got to the end of this movie and I never understood what Juniper was. Anybody out there? It doesn't matter which of you.
Yes, I spoke to the director. Juniper is the plant that is used to make gin.
Ah, okay. Thank you very much. Did you know that before asking, or did you?
No.
Right. Yeah, because, I mean, you've got to extrapolate, and you can understand, but the star of the show here is a woman who drinks like a fish. So, and her drink of choice is not, let's say it's not lemon juice. It is definitely gin. So this woman is rude, she's belligerent, she's overbearing, and she's mighty proud of it all. And she's crippled, she's ailing, and in her past, she was a war photographer. Her name's Ruth, played by Charlotte Rampling. Very, very fine actor. Ruth is a straight-talking English woman who is, as I mentioned, the centrepiece around whom the action unfolds in Juniper. We're talking about the year 1992, and the only way you actually know that is in terms of some of the things that you're seeing, but there's also an upside-down calendar at the start of the film. So Ruth is visiting and staying with her son, Robert, because, as I mentioned, she's an English woman. Robert is played by Martin Sokas, and she's also visiting the grandson, Sam, George Ferrier, and they live in New Zealand. Only neither the son nor the grandson wants Ruth there, because there's no love lost between mother and son, nor between Ruth and Sam, between the mother and the grandson. So she arrives in a wheelchair. She's got a broken leg. She's got a nurse, Sarah, played by Edith Poor, in tow. And in short, she does everything the way she wants to do things, regardless of the consequences. Sam, well, he's particularly fragile because his mother's just died. And after his mother died, within a couple of months, he was carted off to boarding school. So there's much tension between his father, who himself was sent off to boarding school at the tender age of 5, and the son. And when Ruth turns up, Sam makes it clear that he wants absolutely nothing to do with her. But when Robert says he has to go to London, that's Robert the father, to sort out Ruth's trust, Sam's left with no choice, because the nurse is also entitled to her breaks. And I've got to say, tending to Ruth is quite wearing. And then the situation worsens quite dramatically before there is a thaw in relations between mother and grandmother. So a couple of words that I came... This to me sums it up. Pain and healing. That was at the forefront of my mind when I was reflecting upon Juniper. What about you, Jacqui?
I was fully engrossed in the film Juniper, and I think that's primarily thanks to Charlotte Rampling, who just completely lives this role. She's just brilliant. Whenever the camera's on her, it's just, she just, exudes the character that she is, but she does it so well. Fruity language and full on, and she's, she's a really interesting person, young at heart, and I thought she was terrific. And Sam, and I'm struggling to remember his name.
George Ferrier. George Ferrier.
Yes.
George Ferrier. Yeah.
George Ferrier. He was just about her equal in this. The young
very,
guy.
Very impressive.
I loved the way, set against the New Zealand landscapes. Of course, I just was really engrossed in the way their relationship developed, because they're so alike. They, sparked off against each other at first, of course, and push each other's buttons. And then you could, obviously this was the gist of the film, the way that they, do come together. But I loved watching the progression of it and how they went about it, and bringing other people into the scenario, his schoolmates, creating, situations that brought them out of themselves. And then I didn't really like the end of the film, but I won't say what it was about. It just shifted for me. But as a film about two really interesting characters who are dysfunctional, forced together, and develop a relationship and such a deep fondness. I thought it was a very special film.
Jacqui, would you agree that, I agree that it's a really quality production and performances, stellar performances, no question about that, but it follows a largely predictable arc.
Yes.
I could see it very early on, and it didn't surprise me in any way, but the performances were great. We talk about the cinematography, wow. I mean, the settings, look, whenever you do something in New Zealand, it's a beautiful country. So you've got the advantage to begin with. But, the cinematography was terrific. There's a number of important reveals that the film has that provide insights into the key characters. You've talked about Rampling. She does haughty with distinction. Really fine showing of rage and resistance as far as I'm concerned. Peter, what do you reckon?
Look, I agree. I spoke to the director about the film, and it's largely autobiographical, not completely, but it's based on his own experiences when he was at school and he had a grandmother in a similar sort of situation with those sorts of fraught issues. And what this film deals with is very much two people at, I suppose, at very strong turning points in their lives, where how their lives will continue, if they will continue, because of course the young man is suicidal, as we discover in the film, and Charlotte Rampling's character is oh dear, is also very unwell.
About to carpet on live radio.
Oh my goodness, that's no good.
No.
Okay.
Just rise above the cacophony, Peter.
Rise above the cacophony. Good name for a film. Anyway, so the dramatic journey that I suppose these characters follow is the important part. Yes, it is to some extent predictable, but I don't think that matters because it is so very carefully shot, so beautifully performed, and really has something to say about different generations, about lives, and about how people cope when they know that they are at a particular turning point in their particular lives. So, look, I found this a very strong drama and was very impressed by it. And I must say, the amount of gin that was drunk in the film is incredible.
Yeah, it was, absolutely. But I'll take issue with one thing you mentioned. I do think it matters if you know the arc, if you know the story arc. Because it's such a quality production, a little bit more effort, a few surprises, whatever it might be, would have raised this to even higher heights. Pardon me, as far as I'm concerned. Surely you can see that.
I don't necessarily agree. I mean, you're not going to have every film being so original that it's going to surprise you and have a different ending or conclusion or plot development. You have to go with genre as well, and whether films are strong in the genre that they're set in. And I think Juniper is an example of a very strong drama genre film with a very strong arc or journey.
Peter, do you remember, in a different genre entirely, but do you remember Ensemble? Right, that movie? Yes?
Yes.
I mean, that blew my mind in terms of the reveal at the end and so on. And, surely that's about creativity as well. And when you say, well, all movies can't be original, I understand they can't be, but surely that's the objective of a filmmaker, to make something that you can't necessarily chart the path and put building blocks along the way. That's the point that I'm making. No? You just
look, that might be a nice aim for some filmmakers, but there are so many genre films and so many other films that are very good at following a journey into their logical conclusion, I suppose, and you're not going to have total originality. Otherwise, what are you going to have in Juniper? Charlotte Rampling at the end of the film suddenly does a repertoire from The Sound of Music and starts dancing or something. I mean,
that's as childish as your other comment about football. Right. Thank you very much. Okay. Let's get on to Dave. Your thoughts about Juniper?
Yeah, I thought it was a beautiful film. I do agree that it was predictable in parts, but I thought what was so special about this film was that it explored the relationship between a grandson and a grandmother. We don't see that very often in cinema. We see a lot of father-son stories and mother-daughter stories, I thought that made this film really special, but I was absolutely blown away by the performances as well of George Ferrier and Charlotte Rampling. I said in my review, George Ferrier reminded me of a very, very young Heath Ledger in some of the films that Heath Ledger made early on in his career. Charlotte Rampling, I take my hat off to her. I love her as an actress. I love the fact that she can go and make a French masterpiece like Young and Beautiful, but then also go and make something like Street Dance or a Vin Diesel movie in between. She's such a versatile actress and she doesn't seem to have that qualm about, no, I'm not going to do that movie because it's a genre flick or it's a popcorn flick. Loved her performance here. Together, Charlotte Rampling and George Ferrier, I think, is what makes this film so special.
I've got to say, Martin Sokas, he does a very good job. It's a smaller role, but he really brings that distance to his persona. And also, to finish off the quartet, Edith Poor as Sarah, the nurse, she shows empathy, which is what you'd expect of Ruth's carer. But, I mean, no question, Ferrier, a breakthrough role, really strong impression, the vulnerable youngster teetering on the edge, Greg. You haven't seen
this one yet.
No, that's true. You will see it, no doubt. It's an important film to see. I mean, the cinematography, I should say, is Martin Williams. The soundtrack's really good too, isn't it? From Martin Perkins and Marlon Williams. That, just to give them a bit of credit, really thoughtful, reflective work. Moments of tenderness, compassion amongst all the barbs and the vitriol that's thrown around here. It's called Juniper. It's M-rated and it runs for 95 minutes. Let's get a score out of 10 from you, Jacqueline.
I gave Juniper a 7.5 out of 10.
So are you okay? Your voice is breaking.
Thank you so much, and I do apologise for that outburst. I was desperately trying to mute my microphone, and it only happened on the third time I attempted it. I'll live.
Does that mean
I will live?
That means you're human, which is a good thing.
I do apologise.
Yes, no problems. We've established that for the first time, that Jacqueline Hammerton is human. Peter Krausz, 7.5 from Jacqui. What do you reckon?
I really like the film. Strong drama, 8 out of 10.
Mm-hmm. And Dave Griffiths.
I'm giving it a 7 out of 10, and I just wanted to say as well, this week we lost one of the most important, I think, film and theatre critics we've ever had here in Australia. Phil Freeman passed away aged 90, and she was a close friend of mine. She reminded me so much of Ruth, because I can remember Phil coming along to one of my birthday parties at a nightclub when she was 70, and she still came along, and she reminded me so much of Ruth. So, yeah, just all the respect to the Freeman family out there this week that with the passing of Phil, aged 90.
Good on you. Yeah, so score out of 10 was 7.
Yep.
I'm also giving it a 7 out of 10. The other movie, I think only Peter's seen this